11:15 is the time here in the WHIP studios. Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn here with you. We're getting you ready for the Villanova game that's coming up this weekend. Nova will be in Houston for the Final Four, taking on Oklahoma. And now joining us is a man that covers Villanova, the Phillies, and basically everything when it comes to Philadelphia sports for the Bucks County Courier Times. And that's Kevin Cooney. Kevin, it's Zach and Mike. Thanks for a few minutes. And how are you, my friend?
Hi, guys. How are you? Hope you're having a good Tuesday there.
Well, we are, and we always enjoy it being here in Philadelphia. So this Villanova team, they've been a team that's had a lot of criticism the last 3 years because they've fell short than what they were supposed to do in the expectation department. What do you think makes this group different than the other 3 years?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors. One is Jack, I think you and I talked about this earlier in the year. It depends on the bracket you get, and I think that Villanova got a bracket that worked to their ability. And you know, from the start, Asheville didn't have bigs that could give them problems. That was a positive. That got the momentum going. Then Iowa, I thought, was worn down by the Temple game and really didn't have the vertical quickness that could keep up with those Nova guards. By the time they got to Miami, I thought Miami really was the game. I thought it was the trip-up game. And they did a good job on the guards at Miami, really forced them to take bad shots. And then when he got to Kansas, I thought that was the best game of the Jay Wright era. And what they did to Perry Ellis is denying him the basketball. After watching what Ellis did in the second game on Thursday night, I thought that was a matchup nightmare for Villanova. You know, but then put in Bridges and Chefu and Jenkins and just rotating guys and basically denying the inside out, I thought was a brilliant strategy and a brilliant execution by Jay Wright and Villanova. So I think when you look at it compared to past years, when you got a hot Connecticut team 2 years ago, when you got last year NC State that was just a perfect antidote for that guard-heavy defense, guard-heavy offense, because they were able to push out bigger guys and had length on the shooters. I think that's what you see now. It's been a good matchup for Nova, and I think they are just incredibly tough. I mean, just mentally, they have been so strong in this tournament, and even when they fell behind 5 the other night, you know, and Jenkins on the bench, you had a feel like that they were going to make a run somewhere. You didn't know if they would win, but you had a feeling they would make a run because of how mentally tough they were, and they did, and they out-toughed the number one team in the tournament.
We all know Jay Wright is a good coach. He got to the Final Four in 2009. But really, when you take a look at this group, you're right. They're playing really loose right now. They have so much confidence. Even when Kansas went on that run in that game, I was pretty confident that Villanova was going to be able to come back. Do you just think that getting past that first weekend and being Iowa just took a monkey off this team's back?
I thought it did. I thought that, look, they're good. I mean, they don't have an NBA player good. You know, they're not, you know, maybe Hart's an NBA guy at the back of a bench. Maybe a Chefu is the same way. Brunson could project to an NBA guy down the road, but he's not there yet. You know, they don't have an Ellis. They don't have a Buddy Hield. They don't have what Carolina does with NBA players. What they've done, though, is they've found a way to maximize and kind of mesh everybody together well. And I give Wright a lot of credit, and I really give Arcidiacono a lot of credit. I mean, he is clearly the heartbeat of that team, and I'm not just saying that because I've covered him now for 7 years, dating back to high school. He is the guy that stirs the drink, and you know, I thought one of the biggest moments of that game the other day, guys, was they fell behind 5, and Arcidiacono senses that they need something, and he gets fouled on the 3. He hit 2 of the 3 foul shots, but it was just a stabilizing presence, got him back into his defensive flow, and he missed the 3 later on that put him up for good.
We're talking to Bucks County Courier Times sports writer in Kevin Cooney. And Kevin, you mentioned that Arcidiacono is the heartbeat of this Villanova team. He really does it all, and he means so much to the program. He has 2 turnovers in his last 97 minutes played. That's practically 5 halves of basketball. How would you describe the type of tear he's been on in this tournament?
I mean, he's going to be a great coach, you know, at some point down the road, because he sees the game differently. He sees cuts. He sees patterns that I don't think a normal 21, 22-year-old player sees. And it makes up for that his shot's not that great. That, he's not, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the quickest guy and all that. He sees the floor extremely well. And I think when you talk about protecting the basketball, that's the thing. He's not going to be fooled by any defense that any team is going to throw at him because he's watched it. And he just processes the game at a different level. And we've all said that this tournament is a guard's game, and it is. And I think that's what you've seen out of Villanova and out of Arcidiacono. The best point guard on the floor each game has won, and that's what Arcidiacono is.
And looking at these four head coaches, they've all been to the Final Four before, especially with their respective programs, except for Lon Kruger, who did it back in the 93-94 season with Florida. But again, he has been a head coach in the Final Four. Williams and Boeheim have won national championships before. Do you think that puts more pressure on Wright and Kruger to prove themselves and get that national championship and cut down the nets?
It's strange. I think if you're at a program like Villanova, and a lot was made that, are they elite? Are they not elite? Coming in the tournament. Well, they're elite now, okay? I think getting to the Final Four to many around them is good. It's good enough. When you get here, it's another weekend tournament, okay? I personally think that Jay cemented his reputation and his legacy no matter what. You don't go to two Final Fours by accident, okay? You may luck in the one, okay? But you don't go to two Final Fours. You don't go to four Final Eights. I mean, just as a fluke, okay? And he's not, and I know this is something that sometimes makes Villanova people cringe, he's not dealing with the same resources that Williams and Boeheim and the others in the Power Football conferences are dealing with. He doesn't play in an arena that's going to wow people. It's not Cameron. It's not the Dean Dome. It's not the Carrier Dome. He's playing in the Ski Lodge. And, for him, yes, they have a nice practice facility and everything, but for him to get this program back twice in 7 years out of a conference that has been totally reconstructed is a hell of an accomplishment. And at this point, look, Jay is going to be the Villanova coach for life at this point, unless he wants to go somewhere else. I don't see any desire for him to move.
And if he's going to want to go out there this weekend and cut down the nets and be a champion and go from the Final Four to a champion, he's going to have to find a way in this semifinal game in the Final Four to slow down Buddy Hield. And that is probably an impossible task the way he's playing right now, averaging just a little bit under 30 points per game. What do you think Jay is going to throw at Buddy Hield this weekend?
I think you're going to see the same thing. I think you're going to see mixing defenses. And it's not so mixed, but it's going to be different players on Hield. I don't think that you can have one guy on Buddy Hield the whole time. You can't just put Josh Hart on Buddy Hield because, quite honestly, the compensation for whatever he'll do defensively is he's going to be trouble on the offensive end. I think Nova's going to have to switch it out. Put Bridges, put Clark, put maybe even Jenkins to float out there and get a bigger hand in his face. Guys, I'm going to fly in the face of conventional wisdom here. As long as Buddy Hield doesn't score 50, I think Villanova wins this game. Because I don't know if Oklahoma's other weapons can handle Villanova's depth. I don't know if Oklahoma, at this point, provided if Nova doesn't do what it did in December and shoot like 12%, whatever it was in Pearl Harbor when those two teams played, if Villanova keeps Hield manageable, and manageable is 32 points. If it's manageable, I think Villanova wins the game. I don't know if Oklahoma has a second weapon that I really feel comfortable saying, okay, this guy is going to be the one that beats Villanova.
Is there an X factor in this game for Villanova? Because you mentioned that depth. They have so many guys that could go on out there and contribute. You saw Sheffer the other night. Even when they played Temple earlier in the year, Jalen Brunson had a special game. Is there one player that you say probably when looking at Oklahoma, he'll probably have a good game for Villanova and be the X factor?
Well, Bridges is interesting to me because Bridges has just been defensively a big force in this tournament. And really even going back to the Big East tournament. So, I think Bridges is going to be a little bit of an X factor off the bench. You're not going to get a lot of scoring out of him, but defensively he's just been huge. Obviously, the 5 steals on Saturday night against Kansas. The other guy who I think they're due to have step up is Jalen Brunson. Brunson has one of those. He got taken out of that game early on Saturday night. I thought the moment was maybe a little big for him at that point. Looked like he forced shots. It looked like he was forcing some things. Jay pulled him out, went to a little different lineup, went bigger. So I think Brunson in this type of game, they're going to need a little more out of him, assuming that they're going to double up on Jenkins or Hart. So you're going to need Brunson to really carry a little more of the scoring ball.
You've talked a lot about Villanova's depth, and I think everyone in Philadelphia knows how deep they are, but this is crunch time. This is the Final Four. Do you think of the 4 remaining teams, the Wildcats are the most deep team roster-wise?
No, I still think it's North Carolina. I think North Carolina
Agreed.
is the deepest team in this tournament. They're the most talented team in this tournament. The catch with North Carolina is, look, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was fatigue getting off the airplane on Sunday night. There's no way Notre Dame should have been that close as they were in the second half to North Carolina. And there's something about Carolina where, as well as they've played, that just doesn't feel quite right. It almost feels like it's too easy for them, and they've had such an easy bracket here when you consider that, they get Indiana, who didn't play a lick of defense. Notre Dame was pretty much running on fumes at that point, too. They're getting Syracuse, who they should destroy on Saturday in the second game, Boeheim notwithstanding. To me, it almost feels like too easy a road where a team like Villanova or even Oklahoma has had to go through a little more of a landmine-filled road to this point, to Saturday night. So I would give the slight edge, actually, to the winner of Oklahoma and Villanova over Carolina, only because I think they've been toughened a little more in this tournament by the matchups they've seen.
Last one with Kevin Cooney, who joins us from the Bucks County Courier-Times. Kevin, I got a minute left, but just real quickly, I saw R.J. Diacono, even though I'm from New York, play in high school. I made a trip down with a buddy of mine from Lower Merion when it was a Lower Merion-Neshaminy playoff game, and I saw R.J. Diacono go 17-17 from the charity stripe and put in 30 points. You've been around him for a long time. Just what makes him so special for a player for this team, just seeing him progress from high school to now, even with that back injury?
I think he's a gym rat. Shot shooting is a product of practice. You guys know that. Zach, you've been around the Temple program for a long time. You see that the best foul shooters are the ones who stick, and you have to kick out of the gym. And that was always Archie Diacono. And I got to admit, and I said this to a couple of people over the weekend, if you put me on Truth Serum 4 years ago, I would have thought that it was a bad match because I didn't think he could handle with that back the grind of what the old Big East was. Now, I wasn't sure his skill set was totally at a Big East power conference level. But boy, he has turned himself into that level. And, when Villanova's got a lot of weapons coming back next year, the biggest question that Jay's going to have to face is, who's going to be the floor leader now that Archie Diacono is gone?
Kevin, we appreciate your insight. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, my friend.
No problem. problem, guys. Have a good one.
You too. There's Kevin Cooney joining us from the Bucks County Courier Times, WHIP radio in Philadelphia. Some really good insight right there from Kevin Cooney. What we'll do right now is we'll take a quick break, and then on the other side, we'll continue the basketball coverage, and we will actually talk to a man that coached against Buddy Hield this year as the head coach of the Memphis Tigers. Josh Pastner will join us next.